couple of years ago, I came across this quote, and I don't know about you, but I love to collect quotes, and I really liked this quote. And so I wrote it down in my journal, and I really thought about it a lot since then. And I want to share this quote with you today. It's from an author named Donovan Riley, and this is what he writes. He writes, "For years, I was like a man with his back to the ocean, staring at a shot glass of water that I thought was God's grace, until I turned and saw." Oh, don't you love that quote? I'll say it again. For years, I was like a man with his back to the ocean, staring at a shot glass of water that I thought was God's grace, until I turned and saw. I think the reason that this quote resonated with me so much is because for years I have felt the same way as Donovan Riley. Like there were limits in life. Like there was only so much grace or so much abundance or so much generosity or only so much forgiveness that one could receive in their lifetime. Or maybe there was only so much patience or time that God would have for someone like me, and that I was just always a beggar asking for more and for more in my tiny little cup. Or I was afraid to ask. I mean, I don't want to be greedy, right? There are certainly people out there who would need so much more than I do. People who are sick or people in poverty. So why does God want to deal with my petty little stuff? But I wonder maybe if I thought this way because it was like humble Midwestern pride, or maybe it's actually a kind of ignorance. I don't know, but I think that often we operate with this assumption, someone out there who is more worthy than we are, someone out there who is more worthy than you are, more worthy of goodness or grace or any of the things that God offers to us. And so since we have this belief, we tend to hold ourselves back from actually receiving it. We don't even realize that the ocean is flooding behind us, and we just stare at our tiny little shot glass of God's grace, and we think, oh, I need to be thankful for this. Right? Some people have like little thimbles of God's grace, or maybe tiny little water vapor droplets. So I should just be so thankful for my little glass. This sounds nice, and it sounds like maybe a right way of thinking, to be thankful for what we have. But I think what happens is that we fail to realize that the ocean is roaring behind us, that God is ready right there to completely drench us with God's grace, drench us with God's love, and drown us in forgiveness and generosity far, far more than our little shot glasses could ever hold. And while we're stuck here looking at our little shot glass of grace, we tend to kind of want to sort of protect it, right? Because, there's not very much that fits in here. And so in our protecting our little amount, it actually changes how we relate to the other people in our lives. Think about it. If we feel like we have this very small vessel, this very small capacity for grace, love, forgiveness, and generosity, so sometimes we give it out to others just really sparingly. Like we think of someone who's maybe hurt us with their words, and I think to myself, well, maybe God forgive me for my words, so here's a little bit of forgiveness. Or somebody who maybe needs some grace from us, we just say, let me pour a tiny little bit of my grace out for you. You see, I think how we understand God's grace affects how we relate to other people. If we think that it's in this limited supply for us, we then only offer our limited supply to others, because that just seems to make sense. But yet, when we understand, when we turn and see that there is this never-ending ocean that is for us, that we can actually drown other people in our life. We can quench them with love, and we can pour out abundantly of grace and mercy and forgiveness and generosity, abundantly more and more, because the supply for us is never-ending. But maybe for you, maybe this is more true about how you relate to yourself. Or some of you, like me, oftentimes, you are so good at beating yourself up. Maybe you're unkind to yourself, more unkind than you would ever possibly be with another person. And you'd maybe give another person the ocean, but somehow you limit yourself to this tiny little shot glass. You find yourself awake at 3 a.m, punishing yourself again for the things that you messed up during the day, replaying your mistakes over and over again, refusing to give yourself mercy, refusing to do that, to promise to do better, to strive harder and to achieve more, until the next night when you find yourself doing it all over again. You're holding so tightly to your little shot glass, so fiercely onto it, while God is just waiting right there with an ocean of grace rushing behind you. For years, I was like a man with his back to the ocean, staring at a shot glass of water that I thought was God's grace, until I turned and saw. 1 John chapter 4 says this, it says, "Beloved, let us love one another, because love is from God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, for God is love." God's love was revealed among us in this way. God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him. This love from God pours out for you. Love of God pours out for me. It is this infinite resource that can't ever be used up, and it can't be limited to a small vessel. You see, it can't be spilled and wasted. It can't be dried up. Instead, it's constant and it's abundant. And most of all, friends, it's for you, and it's for me. This week, we're talking about relationships. The relationships that we have with ourselves, the relationships we have with our parents and our families, the relationships we have with our significant others, and the relationship that we have with God. And we're going to look at how we relate to others that are in those relationships with us. Do we relate to them with shot glasses of love and grace and belonging and acceptance and generosity and forgiveness? Or do we relate to others and ourselves in this life with oceans of all of those things? And so we're asking the question this week, why does that matter? I'm going to leave you with a couple of questions to ponder today. Maybe talk about them if you're watching this with someone or you know somebody else who's watched it as well. Are you more likely to look at grace as a shot glass or as an ocean? And how is this understanding impacted how you give and dispense grace to others? And last question, why is it so often so difficult for us to receive the gifts that God offers us? Friends, this week we're going to explore more about relationships, and we're going to unpack some messages that we get sometimes that we kind of get wrong, and we're going to match those up to see what God says about it. If you're somebody who's watching on Facebook, would you go ahead and like and share this? Would you maybe consider tagging someone who could use a message of grace today? And if you're watching on YouTube, would you go ahead and hit subscribe? And if you're joining us on cable access, I'm so honored that you're here. Will you tell a friend tomorrow? Thanks so much for being with us.
Oxygen, my very breath, the source of life, the source of rest. Oh, I need you. You're the wind that fills these fragile sails. You carry me through crashing waves. Oh, I need you. Oh, breathe in, you in, Yahweh, Yahweh. Breathe in, you in, Yahweh, Yahweh. Breathe in, you in, Yahweh, Yahweh. stars would have no shine. Stars would have no shine without your word. So be the spark, Lord, let me burn. Oh, I need you. Oh, I need you. Burning within, Yahweh, Yahweh. Burning within, Yahweh, Yahweh. Burning within, Yahweh, Yahweh. Burning within. You are the great I am, seated upon the throne. Nothing can take your place in my heart. I'm bringing all I am, standing with lifted hands. Nothing can take your place in my heart, in my heart. Singing your name, Yahweh, Yahweh. Singing your name, Yahweh, Yahweh. Singing your name, Yahweh, Yahweh. Singing your name. Singing your name, Yahweh, Yahweh. Singing your name, Yahweh, Yahweh. Singing